You will. All right. Welcome to another edition of Vegas Bad Boys of Podcasting. I'm DJ Impact here, and we got Simon Street, who's also a part of Vegas Bad Boys. And once again, we're having that talk that we've been having now this week. And I have three, I would like to call them the true top guys here to help talk about this with us. And I'm excited. The first one we have over here is Mr. Adam Woods. He's the host of According to the Woods podcast. Yeah, man. Thanks for hanging out with us.
Hashtag brother me softly. Thank you for having me.
Me softly.
That's right. Next over, we got Mr. BJ Darden, who's the vice president of content and TV programming for the Round Table Pro Wrestling podcast. How are you doing, sir?
You can see us every Monday, Wednesday, Friday night on BoyzSlam.net, yo.
Absolutely. And of course, the pro wrestler who's the current Princess of Pride champion, he is Da Shade. How you doing, man?
Ooh, I love the sound of that. I'm feeling great tonight. I'm feeling great.
Man. Looking good, my man. Looking good. Look at that.
Yeah.
Appreciate it. Trying to be like you.
Oh no, man. I'm trying to be like you. I'm just, I'm at the table. I'm trying to
All
eat.
right, Mr. Simon Street, man, go ahead and kick it off.
Okay, gentlemen, well, first and foremost, thank you so much for being a part of our panel. We got a really good discussion that I think everybody who's listening and people who are getting an opportunity to watch this right now are going to be entertained. They're going to be able to grab some of this knowledge, and they're going to feel the perspective. The question is, what is, in your opinion, the state of African Americans in professional wrestling, past, present, in the future? We're going to go ahead and open up this topic discussion. I'm going to go and start with Woods. You're up.
So to get to where we are, you kind of have to get to where we were, right? And you had guys like in Canada, Sweet Daddy Siki, who trained Edge and Christian and a litany of others. Here in the 50s, you had Sailor Art Thomas, who was, a Navy serviceman who went into pro wrestling, built like a brick shithouse, man. That dude could have been a world champion, but why wasn't he a world champion? Why wasn't it until, a guy that we now know as maybe a jovial gentleman in Round the Truth Killings or Our Truth Now, right, to get a black NWA champion, when Sailor Art Thomas, in Luthez's book, who, in my mind, Luthez, Vern Gagne, those are like top 10. If you really know wrestling history, those are top 10 of all time, right? Legit shooters that came over to pro wrestling and trained a litany of others, right? And so, with that all being said, it took all that, there's Art Barr, Art Thomas, there was Sweet Georgia Brown, there was, female and male wrestlers that were literally, trying to fight the fight of being a great pro wrestler, right? And they just happened to be of African-American descent or African descent, right? And never got their just due. And it wasn't until, I'd say, The Rock, really, in the, mid to late 90s, that you saw, a bit of representation. But also there's Ron Simmons, but Ron Simmons was a traditional champion. And not to say that he wasn't great. Obviously, he's a WWE Hall of Famer, maybe not even Ron Simmons. Everything that he did after he won the WCW World title, from Vader no less, who was a monster heel, right? So the state of pro wrestling in present time is, you could really chart it with the New Day, right? Because they were the top merchandise sellers even before Roman Reigns was, right?
Right.
Millions upon millions of dollars that they generated with the company. 2 out of the 3 got title runs in Kofi and Big E. And I don't know if you heard around the newswire, but apparently the WWE locker room is unhappy about many things, but one of which is Big E's title reign. Right? So that's where we are. That you could literally talk about, CM Punk and brass rings and anybody that's ever talked about him in that company specifically, but, the wrestling world, the world over, right? Those guys did everything right and are essentially transitional champions. Their overall lineage in the WWE champions, kind of pecking order is that of Jinder Mahal, which again, another brown guy.
Right.
Don't hinder the gender.
10 points. So that's where we are. That you can do everything right and still, not be the top guy or top girl of any company. But then on the flip side of that, if you want to be recognized for your accomplishments and not just the fact that you're black, well, we also have to go with, if you're not that great of a wrestler. I'm not looking at you, Big Swole, but I'm kind of looking at you, Big Swole. So that's the kind of catch-22, that if you want to get away from just being a black wrestler, right, and be treated as such, well, I should be able to say, hey, I'm not a fan of you, not because you're black, it's because you're not
Right.
where I want you to be.
Let me ask you. Let me go over to you, Da Shade. Da Shade. I mean, listen. It's no secret that when it comes to anything with black people trying to move up, even in corporate America and sports, anything, we just can't be good. We have to be best. We have to be almost overachievers. Um, with that, I mean, how difficult is that to be in the profession of professional wrestling, knowing that if we're not the best, better than everyone else, we might not get looked at. We might not get taken to the top. Kind of what Woods was saying.
So when I hear that nowadays, it drives me to challenge and to change the stigma, if you will.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
Like when I first started wrestling, when I was trying to figure out what gimmick, I wanted to do, I was like, oh, I'll just be the typical, thug dude. I'll go be this badass. And I was like, I was putting myself into a mold that people in wrestling society had already placed me in mentally, and it wasn't working. So I was like, instead of trying to fit what they want me to do, let's change it, do what I want to do, because then that way I have no one to blame but myself if it fails, type of thing.
Right.
To where if I listen to somebody, I can have excuse all day. Well, so and so said this, and do it this way and do it that way. But at the end of the day, with people of color in wrestling, like I said, we get put in a category already, in a bag, and we've tried to escape it, but we do it the right way or the wrong way, if that makes sense, And to me, I think when people break that mold, it makes it easier for the next group of people to come through, if that makes sense. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. Well, I mean, BJ, what do you do though when you hear someone saying, okay, I don't want to do this, I don't want to be that guy, but if you're working for a promotion, you got writers that's going, yeah, well, we kind of want you to be that guy. Well, if you decide to say, well, I'm not going to be that guy, now you take the risk of not being on TV, not getting any work. What do we do when we in situations like that? I mean, especially in the bigger promotions. I know when you're working in the indies, you have a little bit more of what you can say, man. But when you get to that WWE level, I don't know. You got to be Roman Reigns to say you can say what you can say. But, I don't think Carmelo Hayes can say he want to do what he want to do. So you tell me.
Well, quite honestly, like when you're in the indies, you can pretty much lay out a foundation of what you want, where you want your career to go, who you want to be, and how you want to be. But like for instance, the NWA. When I first started with the NWA, I've always wanted to be an NWA guy. I never wanted to be a WWE guy because I wanted to be a wrestler, not a comic book character. I didn't want to be a pimp, or I didn't want to be a rapper, or a singer, or a gospel person, whatever. I didn't want to do all that stuff. I want to be an actual professional wrestler and show the people that I can fucking go out there and go, and that I can do it.
Right.
So I stood my ground with Bruce Tharp of the NWA, and I said, hey man, I don't want to do this thug gimmick or this rapper or this evangelist, whatever you want me to do. I want to be a professional wrestler. And someone told me, you'll never make it.
Mm.
You'll never ever get to do what you dreamed about doing because you're a black wrestler.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm one of those guys that you can tell me, yo, man, you can't do this. And not only am I going to do it, but I'm going to excel at it just to shut your mouth. I became the longest reigning NWA Pacific Northwest heavyweight champion in history. Guys like Roddy Piper, Jimmy Superfly Snuka, the Grappler, who was the longest reigning champion in history, Mr. Perfect Kurt Hennig, legends held that belt. I've now held it longer than all of them. The NWA Continental Heavyweight Championship, same thing. Ricky Morton, Robert Gibson, Sid Vicious, Jerry Lawler, all those guys held that belt. I've held it longer than all of them. 5-time NWA Heritage Champion. Currently the OIWA North American Champion. And the reason why I'm called a franchise is because I go somewhere and I make myself the top of the tier because someone says you can't do it. So I'm going to prove to them that it doesn't matter what my color of my skin is. I'm going to do it because I'm simply driven. And a lot of black wrestlers are that way. Like, for instance, there was an article on News One. They rated the top 10 black wrestlers of all time. Okay. So, and they broke it down like sporadically. Mr. T, first and foremost, Mr. T was not a fucking wrestler.
Right.
This is what it is.
Not
But
even
because he had a run-in with Roddy Piper and he was at WrestleMania, that made him the wrestler. So now he's the top 10 wrestler in the world, black wrestler.
Wow.
Then you got Kamala. I would agree Kamala is one of the best examples of a black man in professional wrestling. The gimmick they gave him was a savage. We're not all savages. We're not all savages, ladies and gentlemen. Just like Hawaiians aren't all pineapple eating, coconut eating, or Japanese people aren't all running around with swords talking about me choppy your pee. Like the WWE will have you believe that.
Mm-hmm.
They will surely have you believe that. Like, for instance, you got R-Truth running around. Ron Killings was a black NWA World Heavyweight Champion. The NWA at the time stood for a symbol of excellence. It's the oldest professional wrestling championship in the world. And you had this guy wearing the belt as Ron the Truth Killings. WWE pulls him over, calls him R-Truth. He's running around shucking and jiving and rapping, and you're doing these stupid little skits, degrading black wrestlers. Not all black wrestlers are dancers and singers. We're not all gospel people or all the other bullshit that they want to throw at you. Guys like Kamala broke them all with that. Mark Henry, the world's strongest man. Legitly, one of the world's strongest men. You got him running around calling himself Sexual Chocolate.
Fucking Mae Young.
Yes. Farouk. Ron Simmons. Farouk. Former fucking football player, University of Miami. Became one of the most dominant wrestlers in the world. Became the first black WCW World Heavyweight Champion. Okay. They totally they put him in a group called the Nation of Domination, made him a black militant. A Malcolm X of wrestling, so to speak.
A Spartan before that.
Exactly.
It's Sonny,
yeah, I remember
we don't
that.
want to talk about that because I could bring Tony Atlas up and Saba Simba. We ain't gonna go there.
Yeah, there you go.
Chuck in.
Let's go.
No shoes on with a spear. We don't do that shit. I mean, come on, man. That's like saying all white wrestlers are redneck cowboys from the Appalachian Mountains sleeping with their sisters and stuff. Stereotypes.
Let me ask you
white wrestlers in LA.
So of course what you're mentioning about WWE is this is kind of what we were seeing coming out of the late 80s going into through the 90s. But would you say, let's move all the way up to 2018, would you say there has been an improvement in how black people are being portrayed, and we could say at WWE, or is there still a challenge there?
There's a huge challenge.
I would say at least WWE has, within the last 3 or 4 years, put a little bit more focus onto its black talent for whatever reason. You know what I mean? I mean, there's been a WWE champion, there's been the women's champion, there's the...
let me stop you right there. There's been the black WWE champion. You're right. Kofi Kingston gets smashed in 23 seconds by Brock Lesnar. Then
I know.
you have
Right.
you have Big E, who is immensely talented, one of the very best. Not only is he a
Yep.
funny guy, but the guy can go.
Yeah.
You have him win the Money in the Bank, and everyone is excited.
Yeah.
He becomes a WWE champion. He's excited. His first major title defense, they put it back on Brock Lesnar, a guy who wasn't even in the match that he lost the championship in.
Yeah.
Think about that for a second. You know, the WWE has come under fire for a lot of things. And they feel like, okay, Roman Reigns is the WWE is the Universal Champion, and we're putting all of our stock power behind Roman Reigns as a black man. Reigns is Samoan. Don't get me wrong, but you know, Samoans are just like black people. We're all the same. You know, we're all in the same category, people of color. But the WWE doesn't see him as a black man.
So what's the story
They
with
see him
Bobby
as
Lashley?
oh well, Bobby Lashley is a whole different story. Bobby Lashley became the WWE champion out of necessity. Just like
You
they
guys
took the
agree
belt
with
off of him they took the belt, gave it back to Brock, and then they put him back over. He won the match and regained the championship, just so he can lose at this coming up pay-per-view.
I'm thinking
Because what they
this
do,
is
they
just-
put Brock right back in there in the elimination chamber, just so he can lose the championship again.
Okay. How about the Shade? Go ahead, man.
I'm thinking. So what I've personally noticed with WWE and people of color, they don't pull the trigger on that until they're called out for it.
Right.
For example, they only change it when they're getting a bad report for it. Perfect example. A few WrestleManias ago, they had the Mae Young, and people caused an uproar. And at first, Stephanie and all them were just like, whatever. We'll keep pushing it forward, keep going with it until it hit a national level. And then they wanted to flip the whole script and say, we listened to you guys. You didn't listen to us. You were upset because you're about to lose a whole bunch of sponsorships and a whole bunch of viewerships, which makes y'all lose money. So you guys weren't changing stuff to help better anything. It was to cover their asses, in my opinion. Same thing when it goes like when they finally pulled the trigger with Kofi Kingston, which should have happened a while ago.
Yeah.
But like every week, something new. It's like, it'd be to the point where they do something one week and have it lead into the next week, and it wouldn't connect. It wouldn't make sense. I'm like, what are y'all doing besides trying to cover your asses? You know?
Right.
They can't
That's
even remember
my-
their storylines. Their storylines last like 3 fucking weeks, and it's like done. You know?
Yeah.
And like you said the whole Kofi Kingston thing. They should have pulled the trigger a long time ago. Look at Shelton Benjamin.
Oh my
Perfect.
gosh!
Shelton Benjamin is immensely talented. Look at Ali, Mustafa Ali. Dude is so over, they won't let him go. But they're like, well, you know what? We're not going to let you go.
Let me ask
But
you this.
Keith Lee, they give him a gimmick, call him a bear cat, you know, and
Jesus Christ,
come on,
yeah.
man.
What is a bear cat? I
What is a
heard-
madcap moss?
Yeah.
Other than when you don't wash your giblets and whatever, that's what grows madcap moss.
Well, let me. All right.
Now every time I see him,
I'm
gonna
gonna think
Yeah.
of that.
100%. That's what I do. I don't know.
Now
That
listen.
broke me.
I know we've been putting WWE on blast, but I mean, AEW's been around just for a short period of time. I haven't seen a lot of things come from there. Luckily, having Keith Lee brought their black percentage up to 1.5%.
Let me tell you
If
this.
you ask me,
Let me tell you this.
hey,
I said this on my podcast last night.
Sure.
Tony Khan went on Twitter New
Okay.
Year's Day or New Year's Eve and blasted Big Swole. Now, be it right or wrong, he said some things about Big Swole that he shouldn't have said. Okay, and as a professional wrestler, I wouldn't want a promoter saying this shit about me.
Yeah.
Right or wrong. Shade, you know the same. So the fact that Tony Khan was coming under fire, and Tony Khan's a person of color too. Don't get it twisted.
right? Yeah.
But he was coming under fire from the black community about what he said. Tony Khan is a mastermind. That dude is so smart because you know what you do? You listen to the fans. The fans wanted something. They wanted to change. They were saying like, there isn't much black representation in AEW. I mean, you got Scorpio Sky, you got a few other people, but there really isn't any black representation, right? So what did he do? He went and got the biggest, baddest, top tier free agent and signed him on national television.
Sure did.
Someone that the fans were begging to come to AEW. Now AEW has.
Well, I think I think before we give him all the praise, we want to see where that goes. Because
I'm not giving him the praise.
Because he's there, doesn't mean how long is it going to take before he now gets to the level of where he should be. And when we talked about Scorpio Sky, why is he a sidekick for Ethan Page? I mean, Scorpio Sky's at a level where he could have already been. If you don't want to at least give him the AEW, why not just give him the TNT?
I've known Scorpio Sky for 20 years. That guy is so freaking talented. He should have been the TNT champion. I mean, granted, Sammy Guevara, another person of color, I don't like him personally, but he's representing.
Yeah,
he's representing the way he should be. Last night on AEW, they finally gave Santana and Ortiz a platform.
Mm-hmm.
They gave Thunder Rosa a platform, and we're talking about lesbians and gays and transgenders and all this other acronyms. The AEW is pushing Nyla Rose now.
Mm-hmm.
That she's getting more TV time now. Now you got to bring Sonny Kiss up, so it'd be, what I'm saying? Like Sonny Kiss is there, another person of color. Give Sonny Kiss a role, you know what I'm saying? So now you got a few people there. They're still not in the main event picture.
With Sonny Kiss, it's just my opinion on it, because I've seen Sonny Kiss in the Indies, and obviously I've seen Sonny in AEW. And to me, it's a different person. I feel like they're letting Sonny Kiss be part of Sonny Kiss, but not letting Sonny Kiss be
Sonny
fully.
Kiss, yes.
It's like
watered down. He's watered down a bit.
I've seen Sonny work, and Sonny can work. The stuff I see on AEW, it still work, but it's like there's a lot more that they're not letting some of their talent do.
But that's true for. One of my favorite wrestlers right now is Shinsuke Nakamura, and this is a guy who I can, you don't like wrestling, I'm into MMA. Cool. Shinsuke Nakamura has a legit MMA record, right? At the time where, Antonio Inoki was making all the, New Japan talent essentially, fight MMA against legit guys. Shinsuke Nakamura is there. And again, like, you could, out of all of the guys and the talent guys and girls and what have you, Shinsuke Nakamura walking down the street, that person's a star. You don't have to know what Shinsuke does, what he is, where he came from, whatever. He's a star in more ways than maybe even Roman Reigns, right? He has that it factor. He doesn't even have to speak the language. That's how over he is. Okada can come over here right now and just blow the shit out of everything that you know about wrestling and what have you. Will they let him? No. And that's... there's so many things. And you guys were mentioning like Nyla Rose or whatever. Okay, so this is probably going to be controversial. But okay, right, exactly. So I get Nyla Rose is a transgender female. Okay. Is Nyla Rose a great wrestler? And I don't see it, unfortunately, for me. For what I like in wrestling, Nyla Rose isn't my hookup. And if you want to go into that, the LGBTQ, community, Mercedes Martinez is an open lesbian. I will watch Mercedes Martinez matches all day where I wouldn't Nyla Rose. And that has nothing to do with what they identify as or whatever. Mercedes Martinez is just a better wrestler, Unfortunately, with Nyla Rose, where Sonny Kiss wrestles men. And they don't explain how Sonny Kiss can wrestle men, but Nyla Rose only wrestles women. It's weird or what have you, at least for me. I haven't had that explained to me. But with that all being said, right, Mercedes Martinez is over here. To me, when you're talking about, top tier talents, right? Top tier free agents, BJ, not to say Keith Lee isn't. I love Keith Lee's work, right? But is he like to get excited about a guy, if you hadn't been watching wrestling or whatever, that, he had a run at the third rate WWE promotion, right? Or, promotion under their banner, right? In the WWE universe, right? Got called up, and Bearcat is what they gave him, right?
And once again, that's not him. That's the idiots in creative.
That's one guy. I guarantee you that I guarantee you Dave Kapoor or Ranjan Singh isn't calling him Bearcat. I guarantee you that Shane Helms is not calling him Bearcat.
Exactly.
I guarantee you.
You know why?
That Road Dogg.
Those are wrestlers.
Yeah.
Don't bring Road Dogg up, because Road Dogg is a racist piece of shit. That's another story for another day.
It could be the story for the day. It could be the story for the day.
N-bombs worse than NWA. So let's just leave that alone.
Oh boy.
You know what, fellas, I do have a question. So, kind of listen to what we've been talking about. One thing that strikes my mind is the presence of people to advocate, not even just for people of color in the industry, but also to advocate for people of color to step into roles behind the camera in creative. We spoke about creative. We spoke about storylines. I mean, who better to write storyline or to help aid in a character or collaborate in a character than someone who is of color, at least to a certain extent, to be able to understand what is the perfect character arc. Because, a lot of times you can tell there's a disconnect. What do you guys think?
There is a disconnect. And I will tell you this from personal experiences. I know a few people like Sean Dean is one of the main guys for AEW Dark. He's a black wrestler, and he gives a lot of black wrestlers a platform to work. AEW Dark, AEW Ramp, AEW Dark, AEW Dark Elevation. He's giving these guys a platform to work. Baron Black and John Gresham literally created a wrestling company, Terminus, and it is run by black men and black women to boost black wrestling. So there are platforms, and you like, for instance, you got the guys from Grapsody, Will Washington, Righteous Reg, and Phil Lindsay. They're a black podcast on the Fightful on Fightful.com. Like, and every Saturday morning they get on, they come on their podcast, and they're three black men who talk about wrestling, and they give it from a black person's perspective. My partner and I, we do a podcast 3 nights a week, and we're two black men that talk professional wrestling. We give it a realistic platform. We tell people how it is. We don't sugarcoat things, and we give it. We give you the person of color's view of what professional wrestling is. There have been guys in this. There have been guys for decades, like guys like Junkyard Dog, Coco Beware, guys like Booker T. Believe it or not, even though he's not so much of a supporter of black wrestling now, but Booker T. Guys like Ice Train. Come on, even The Rock, The Godfather. Guys that have been around for a long time. Black wrestling. So Teddy Long. Just I'm all about like realism. I'm all about like who has been there. Norman Smiley.
Norman Smiley. Fuck yes.
Yeah. The first black man to be the CMLL World Heavyweight Champion.
Mm-hmm. That's
CMLL is the oldest championship in Mexico, and Black Magic. Not screaming Norman Smiley from WCW.
Yep.
Not the big wiggle from WCW. I'm talking about Norman fucking Smiley, Black Magic.
Facts.
I grew up watching that guy in CMLL. That guy made me want to be a black wrestler in Mexico.
Facts.
You know what's so interesting? How you talk about, and it's incidentally enough, it was mentioned in our last panel that we talked about. It works when you can be yourself. and you can give that authentic representation of who you are. And it just so happens that you happen to be a person of color, and you let that combine with what your element that you're bringing to the table, and that seems to what can get you over. My question to y'all is what is it that we need to do more of to try and do we need to own more black syndicated promotions, or are we not doing enough as fans, speaking up enough? Is there something that maybe we're missing, or maybe within even ourselves is something that maybe we aren't doing more that maybe we possibly can do?
Yeah, that's a good question.
Well, we gotta know. We gotta have a goal. We gotta know what we want. When the people wanted Naomi champion, they went on there and they fought on social media, and it happened. If we want to make change, like for example, if we think that there need to be more black writers, more black behind the scenes in these big promotions, then maybe the same type of push need to happen for that. Maybe some of the names you named, BJ, that could be representations they're doing their own thing, but maybe we can move them up into this level. And that's if they want. But maybe that needs to happen, but it would take a coalition. I mean, what's your take? Anyone on that one?
That's good. I mean, like, think about it. Like, everything you just said right now makes a whole lot of sense. There are some guys on the indies right now that are making that push. That are being themselves. Darius Lockhart. Come on, man, that guy's killing the game. He's pushing the right way. Shade, same thing. Scrapyard Dog. Shane Taylor. Number one, Shane Taylor. He is one of those dudes. I've known Shane for a long time personally, and Shane's always preached equality, but he's always preached how he wants to put over his brothers and sisters. Right. He's out there doing the most, man. He's making something of it. It's just so many people that have been around that are trying to push themselves and push others. And that's what it needs. Honestly, that's what it needs to be. That whole brother, mentality in professional wrestling. I hate to say the word cliques, but it's true. The cliques in professional wrestling, guys need to start working on helping each other out. Like, hey, I'm a booker for a professional wrestling company. During Black History Month, I'm booking black men in main events. Like Black History Month. Look, first and foremost, Black History Month is the shortest fucking month in the history of the year.
Yep,
28 days, 29 on a leap year.
Right.
So let's not just make it about Black History Month. Let's make it about Black History, period.
Adam, let me just throw this at you, and in the shade, I'll go over to you. Maybe, do you think maybe the focus shouldn't necessarily be about us trying to fit into the bigger promotions, but more of us really just focusing on building our own thing? So why can't you have a black WWE? I just throw it out there. Where you can take it to that level. I mean, is that possible?
Okay, so there's a couple different things, right? So going back to the previous deal about representation about within writers, right?
Correct. Yes.
Well, you had Dave Kapoor was there for damn near 20 years, brown guy, right? You had at one point Freddie Prinze Jr. Whose dad was essentially one of the cornerstones of after Desi Arnaz, there was like a 20-year, gap between, a Latin American male, in I Love Lucy and Desi Arnaz to Chico and the Man with Freddie Prinze Jr. Senior, I should say, right? And you've got his son, who's working, who has all the Hollywood things that you like. He's married to Buffy the Vampire Slayer or whatever. Still couldn't get it. You had Patrice fucking O'Neal, one of the greatest comedians amongst comedians of all time, right? He was there. Still, did you see any change in the product? It really is up top. You can have all the representation, but what do they what say do they have? What equity do they have?
Right.
And that's it. And it unfortunately it has come to, like, as much as I love fucking Jonathan Gresham and Terminus, it has to come to that where we have to have our own, right? But our own, unfortunately, might not have the capital as the other promotions and what have you. So you're almost at the starting block. You're back at the start of the starting block before you could even start anything at all, right? So it's really tough. And I will say the New Day situation is so disheartening for me, right? Because like, at least the way that I was taught, right? My dad was like, hey, if you want to vote, the best way you can vote is with your dollar, right? So you had not just our people, who didn't like the New Day at what iteration, right? You might have fallen off, and towards the end, you might have thought went on too long. Hell, to some incarnation, it is still going on with at least two of the members still adopting the batter, still throwing pancakes and what have you, right? But with that all being said, everybody was a New Day fan. My kid, who doesn't even watch wrestling, was a New Day fan.
Right.
He heard, hey, it's a New Day, it is, and his eyes went to the screen. It might have been for a fleeting glance or whatever, but no other person in the show had him like that as a 14-year-old kid, right? So with that all being said, the fact that those two guys only had, like, I mean, in instance of Kofi, who had been with the company for 20 years, right? That's all? Like a short-term title reign, and at a time where what way, I mean, just kind of playing like fantasy booking, going in with a black champion that has been there for whatever. What if he beat Brock Lesnar? What if he retained the title? How much different would the landscape of WWE be? But then again, wouldn't it be? Because it's not just us. You go over to fucking Killer Cross. They made him fucking the love child between Lord Humongous, Sid, and fucking Isaac Yankum's Unabomb. Like, what the fuck? So it's not just us. Right? So, I don't know. And I'm making a very good case, like, don't watch wrestling at all. But no, it's like, watch it, of course. And especially now, there's more representation, whether it be GCW, AEW, New Japan, FSW, where Bad Blood wrestled, Traditional Wrestling Entertainment, shout out to them. Venue Wrestling Entertainment, the championship that Da Shade holds. Go do that. But also, I'm not entirely convinced that even if you two, who are active wrestlers, sold out the fucking venue, and a litany of them did 10 string of sellout shows in different parts of the country, sold out all your gimmicks and whatever, I'm not entirely convinced, and maybe that's the mindset that I've adopted because Vince has kind of bogged me down for so long.
Sure.
I'm not entirely convinced that would make a fucking difference anyway. Wow. I'd be happy for you two, but I'm not entirely convinced that.
Let's go over to the Shade. What's your take on this, man? I know there's a lot there, and you know what? And I'll throw another one at you if you want to answer this one too, because from an indie level, right? My guess is that most guys that are in indie, their ultimate goal is to want to someday get into one of these promotions. How difficult is it, from where you're at right now, as hard as you work, as being champion, you're doing everything you possibly can to be shown that hopefully someone will give you an opportunity, maybe even just a tryout. How difficult is that, starting from the bottom, just trying to get to one of these promotions?
It's super hard. Believe it or not, one of the biggest roadblocks is peers, because we all want the same thing and whatnot. And there is a very small group of wrestlers that I personally know that are in the mindset of I get better when you get better type of thing. But then there's a big plethora of people who are like, yeah, I got you. But all they're waiting for is for you to slip up somewhere small so they can come in and take it from you. and then act like they knew nothing about it, type of thing. So I think if there were more, like the whole clique thing, more of a brotherhood than a clique thing, like people who actually full legit, like, hey, let us go out there, protect each other, and put on a great match for these for these fans,
right?
Instead of people like, hey, so I'm gonna hit you with this. You can go for this. I'm gonna sell it for a little bit, and I'm gonna hit you with this. Like, I think a lot of wrestlers put themselves in that box, and then when the box isn't open for them, they're quick to blame their peers again. Like,
Exactly.
oh, this happened because I let you do this, and you ain't get me on the return, or this, that, and the third. So accountability, as it needs to be more involved when it comes to people getting even tryout matches, or even going to like certain seminars. Like, there's supposed to be a seminar out here in Vegas with Matt Stryker. I almost said Matt Riddle, my bad. Matt Stryker. And that ended up being canned because two companies couldn't get along.
Oh, wow.
And when that happens, it creates an invisible divide as well. Because, like, no one, like, personally, I'm not signed to one promotion. Like, I wrestle where I can wrestle, where I want to wrestle.
Right.
But some promotions don't let you do that, or if you do that, then you catch heat, or you lose opportunities. And I've seen it happen to my friends.
Yeah.
Like, we had an Impact come into town, and a friend of mine stood up because through the whole Me Too movement and Black Lives Matter stuff, the promoter didn't see his way at all, which is fine. Like, no one has to see each other's way, you know. But instead of taking it as that, he used it against him, and so, like, he took an opportunity away from him. That instead of
wow,
giving it to him and be like, hey, me and this guy don't see eye to eye, but he can wrestle. Because there are plenty of people that I wrestle for that I don't like.
Oh yeah.
But I know that we can keep it business, and like this person won't use it against me later down the road, type of thing.
You know, it's interesting. Oh, I'm sorry.
No, you're good. And for those of you who don't know, here in Vegas, Versus Pro Studios is run by a black man, 100%. Which is hard to find. I wish there was more of it, honestly, because I think that would be another big step in the right direction for this stuff. But like, when I'll hear wrestlers talk about, hey, I wrestled down here, I couldn't get this spot because of my skin tone. I was like, well, hit up Versus. Guaranteed we got something for you. Guaranteed. Like, we're always trying to help push other people, because then again, like, hey, this person did this because they had the correct support team, if that makes sense, you know?
Yeah,
makes sense.
You know, it's interesting, Shade, that you were speaking about how, you know, because certain lines are drawn, right, and people get caught in the middle, and opportunities then become this uncomfortability to a certain extent, you know, almost like mom and dad are arguing at the table, and you just a child sitting at the table, like, well, what happens next? Because I'm trying to get my movement going in a forward direction. Do you feel that a lot of the times, as we spoke about earlier, how advocating for oneself, do you see what I'm saying? Not just in trying to uphold wrestling to be done correctly in light of the black wrestler, but for oneself in their dream. Do you feel that you have a platform as a black wrestler and have that ability to advocate for yourself and not be demeaned for it, not be penalized for it? Because there are some people, even outside of the realm of the industry, in some instances, is to where I've been told as a black man, I need to stay under the radar. I shouldn't rattle the cage, or I shouldn't speak up when something's not right, because you should be happy you even here. I'm not saying that it happens a lot in the industry, but when that does happen, do you feel as a black wrestler that you can stand up and say, this ain't right? We need to do this and this, at the risk of possibly being ostracized maybe for opportunities in the future?
Definitely. Early on, I would try to do something. I'd be told, don't do it that way. You have to do it this way. I'm like, all right, my bad. I'll do it this way or whatever. And I'd be doing. I was like, this isn't fun anymore. Like if I'm not enjoying this, why am I doing it? And so I took a gamble, and decided to not do and say what I was supposed to do and say. Just like if it fails, then I know I was wrong. It's all on me. It didn't fail, and I was like, they told me not to do this, but I got the reaction that I was supposed to get. I'm just like, I need to start looking out more for me, because apparently not all these people have the best interest as they stake they do for me or whatever. They wanted to see me do great. They just didn't want me to see me do better than them.
And sadly, like as sad as it sounds, bro, that is 150% like the indies right now. There, and I always tell people there are a few people in wrestling that are out to help each other, and then there are people that are just out for themselves, like straight shoot. I ain't gonna bullshit you guys. I'm not gonna lie to you guys about anything. I'm not just a straight shoot. It happens all the time, and the sad part is, we as black wrestlers always try to, at least some of the ones that I know, we always try to elevate each other. But then they're the ones that are like, yo, if you ain't getting me booked, why should I care? And that right there is one telltale sign of how we need to fix the issues, and we need to figure out how we as black men and women can work together to take over this shit. I mean, think about it, guys. Think about it. We are so fucking over in the world of professional wrestling right now.
Yeah, absolutely.
100.
If we all decide to just get together and work together, that's why I love the podcasting industry. You know what I mean? Like, be it what it may, I've made some great contacts in this podcasting world that when I retire from the ring, like, this is my gig. Like I said, guys from Grapsody, I can call any one of them. Hey, man, you want to jump on our show tonight? Sure. Guys from Fightful, guys from BodySlam.net, guys from Vegas BadBoyz, same shit.
Yeah.
Now, if professional wrestling and in general was the way the podcasting industry is right now, for the most part, and if we can do that, dude, Rodney King said it. Can't we all just get along?
You know what's funny? There's so much opportunity and so much money on the table. Why can't we not?
Bro, everyone can eat. Dude, the table's big. Everybody can eat.
So in theory, right? Because I was actually thinking about it, because you guys know about the black pages, right? Yes. Are you guys familiar?
I've heard the term before. I haven't had a chance to really look deep into it, but I have heard it.
So during the time of Jim Crow, right? As you were a black family trying to have a vacation and what have you, there was almost like a Thomas Guide, right? But just black owned businesses and restaurants and hotels that you wouldn't face the scrutiny in some places, especially the South, of like the KKK, right?
Mm-hmm.
It give you, this is the interstate to go on. And when you're on that interstate, you can go to Mama B's restaurant, and you could stay at, the Johnson's hotel and whatever, right? So in theory, right, if we wanted to make this happening, right, maybe it takes almost a territory system of maybe a black promoter that puts on black wrestling for a predominantly black fan base. But then again, that's when you start to marginalize. It can't be all black. It has to be for everyone, right? But let's just play around with it, right? Let's say majority black wrestlers, right? Black booker, black owner, right? And you have one in LA. You have one in Atlanta. You have one almost like the NWA type system of black wrestlers, right? And now it's not to say those black wrestlers can't wrestle on other shows or what have you, but a system in place where you have just like the NWA, you have a traveling champion, you have, your homegrown guys, you have people that come in and out and what have you. And I think if you did it that way, like Gresham, we'll talk about Terminus, right? If you had a Terminus affiliate in every major city that you run, that almost takes the heat off of you, right? Because you're able to leverage local promoters and local sponsors that you wouldn't if you're a nationally wide or globally wide promotion, right? You get to harness those things. I think that would be a bit of a start to it, and especially right now where there's talent all over the place, it'd be the time to do it.
So you need to find whatever black people who are running those type of organizations now. I think BJ, I mentioned quite a few. We probably would kind of need them to then see who they can branch off that information they have onto this other person who wants to now in another city, kind of be that brother and say, this is what you're going to need to do. I can kind of help you out into starting. Because let's say, for example, I want to do that. I wouldn't know where to start. I wouldn't know where to go.
Right.
Even though I know that's a need. And then at the same time, are the guys that are running that, will they take the time to say, Impact, DJ, let me sit with you then. I see what you want to do. I've done it. Let me help you get that going in Vegas or in Phoenix or in LA. I believe, Adam, I agree with what you're saying. But it's going to take somebody who's already in that position to kind of maybe find others who want to do that same thing and then help push them forward.
Right. Good.
No, I was just gonna say, one thing to add to that too is definitely get them to understand it's the bigger picture. It's not the sprint, but the marathon.
Exactly.
Because I think a lot of times that's where you run into people that will see them like, well, what can you do for me right now, man, brother? I'm struggling. I'm trying to get my promotion off the ground. I'm trying to get this going and say, like, look, man, you ain't got to stop doing what you're doing, but look at the bigger picture as we connect the dots together.
Right. Well, and it's weird because I'm counterpointing my own kind of theory, but wrestling is also wrestling, though, right? Because you're always going to have those promoters. Look no further than like the Wrestle Rock Rumble, right? Where the AWA and everybody was trying to team up against Vince, right? Jerry Jarrett, Vern Gagne, I think the Crockett's were in, right? And it all blew up because there's too many cooks in the kitchen. And these are also people, I mean, when you talk about the Crockett's, when you talk about the Jarretts, when you're talking about the Gagnes, Greg and Vern, to the point where they're at 1980, those families had been doing it for 30 years up until that point, right? So they know their way of doing it. And also, their style of wrestling might not work. And that was the beauty of the territory, right? Memphis, you knew you were going to get, Fireballs and Jerry Lawler. In Florida, you might get Dusty Rhodes and somebody else. Texas, you got the Von Erichs and what have you, right? So there would almost have to be a legal standpoint, like, hey, you can't poach my talent, you can't whatever. But I don't know. Like, in theory, it sounded great, but it's also wrestling, right? Where, some promoters are going to want to take and pillage the, talent from the other promoter, and, you stiffed me on a payday, or what have you. So it would really, like, go ahead.
I love what you're saying, Adam, because it makes a lot of sense. But then you get promoters like here, like, for instance, here in Oregon, BCW Worldwide has been running for 15 years out of one building. And during the COVID issue, the COVID era, we had to stop running shows. And when we started running shows, DOA Pro Wrestling slid into our building, and started doing shady business, with us, against us, while saying, hey, brother, let's shake hands, and brother. So you got promotions that, and people in general that are shady as fuck in this industry. And then you got guys that are legitimately like, hey, man, look, how can I help you to help me to help you? So, in a sense, you just have to look for the right group of people. And sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Back in the 80s and 90s with the NWA, it worked. Because you had one world champion going to all these different areas, currently with the OIWA, currently run by Sir Mo, another person of color. You got champions like myself and Dante Smiley who are going from company to company to company in California, in Oregon, in Utah, in Arkansas, in Texas, in Tennessee, in Vegas, and we're sharing talent, trying to help boost and build everybody up. But then you got promoters that just are out for themselves. So, and you got to look at the business that way also. You got to find yourself a core group of people that actually give a fuck about the business and not just their business.
So, real quick, we're going to move into a different aspect question. This was really good, so I didn't want to have to go off of this next question. But we talked a lot about, the male perspective, or what's happening with predominantly males. Let's kind of shift over a little bit to what do you guys' take on the state of wrestling when it comes to, Black women? That's something that, is barely even breaking ground, although it has been a mainstay for so long. It's just people didn't know about it. What do you guys' take with regards to that?
It needs to be shown more than it is. For like example, watching SmackDown or whatever, like they'll have segments, matches or whatever, and like they'll feature their females maybe a match. If not a match, maybe like a 30-second promo or whatever, and then it's done. When I feel in most aspects, some of the female storylines that have been going on have been more catching than the male ones. And like having Ronda, Becky, and Charlotte do the main event of WrestleMania was great. It was dope, but it wasn't done for the right reasons, in my opinion. To me, I think it was just something like Vince used them as a quick cash grab. Like, oh, we got Ronda money, we got Charlotte automatically money, and Becky. He's like, I'm making. I think he thought, how can I make the most out of these three females without having to put them on TV as much? When I honestly think that's what really draws most of these fans to watch wrestling. Because like we can go to the gym and see a sweaty Keith Lee lookalike, a sweaty Da Shade lookalike, or what have you, whatever. But the females that we have in wrestling need to be used more, because once they're gone, like you can't make another one. Like you can try, you can put bring Awesome Kong back and try to put her in some puzzle that she doesn't even fit in, and then when that fails, they'll be quick to blame the audience or Awesome Kong, but not take responsibility for their own mistake and actions for what they did with who they did it with.
I think I'll just say this quite quickly. You mentioned SmackDown. I think right now that Naomi, Sasha Banks, and Bianca's Raw, but even Bianca Belair, I believe that they're all in. They got pretty strong sort of storylines. They're not just kind of thrown out there. In fact, I'm really into the Naomi one. Just kind of how they're doing that entire thing with Sonya.
It's been so long.
Well, yeah, I agree. And listen, you're talking about a person who was upset at SummerSlam.
Oh boy,
the way Becky just came and with a few seconds knocked Bianca out.
Yeah,
I was so pissed at that. It was. I mean, listen, we were Simon and I was sitting in front of a woman that was dressed just like Bianca, who was boo-booing and crying. But I took a whole different stance on that, because how do you build somebody up to be the strongest, to be the best, and she ended up taking an L the way she gets it? Now, I already know she's going to be a champion again. I get all that. But at that moment, why did you feel that is what was needed to totally? It's the same thing that happened to Biggie. It's the same thing that happened to
Kofi.
Kofi. So we beginning to see this trend, and then if you bring it up, it's like so you're looking at it the wrong way. But yet we keep seeing it done the same exact way.
There's no other way you
To
can
me,
look
that's
at it. It's right in your face.
That they want
can't-
you to be good but not be better than them. Like, oh yeah, you can do this. Hold on, you get a little too popular, a little too much clout. We're gonna knock you down and make you lose the title.
You know, the thing
And
that makes me laugh
All
about
they're
what
doing
you
is
just
shooting
said.
themselves in the
And
foot.
by the way, they bringing in a lot of dollars. I know when you were talking about that, Adam, about the amount of money, the amount of money like New Day bring in, but the money that Sasha had brought in and Bianca had brought in. I mean, you see these. You go into a show and you see a lot of these shirts and girls and little girls who are dressing just like them. You know, it's
You know, the sad part about it is that money that they're claiming that they're not getting. You know, the New Day #1 sellers. Like, so they were selling more merch than Roman Reigns at one time.
yeah, they were.
Mhm.
They had their
No.
own freaking cereal that I bought 3 boxes of. Not gonna lie.
That's right, bootios. But you know, think about it. Like, these guys are killing the game when it comes to making you money.
Right.
So how do you repay them?
Job them
Let me go
out.
ahead and
Right.
go ahead and split you guys up because you guys are getting too powerful. And I talked about this on the podcast last night. Big E is the only person in the WWE to be drafted to a brand and then redrafted back to the brand with no fanfare.
Mhm.
Every time they come up, every time 2 weeks later, here come Big E back with the crew.
Yep. Because you know he outlived his usefulness,
Yeah.
and now we're gonna go ahead and put him back. You know, that's why I look at AEW, the Jade Cargill thing.
Yeah,
Okay, she's green as goose shit,
right.
right? Like, I mean, as a wrestler, I'm gonna say it. She's green as goose shit, but now she's got Bryan Danielson, like, mentoring her and training her, and she's getting a whole lot better. But they literally built a championship around her. They
Yeah.
built that whole TNT, that TBS championship just for her, to put her over, to make her a star. So they're spotlighting her every week on Rampage, and she's right now she is a figurehead for all black women in the industry and black wrestlers in the industry, just in general, because she's getting that spotlight. Naomi is so friggin' over that
Absolutely.
they're going to bury her.
Yep.
Which is crazy.
I don't understand it. It's like saying,
But
"Hey,
I
man,
was.
I got the winning lottery tickets, right? I got the winning lotto numbers. Here, I'm gonna whisper them in your ear and let you know what they are. But the moment you try to cash that shit in, nope, Publishers Clearinghouse your ass. If you know, you know. If you don't know, Google it.
I will tell you this though, you know, I see what's happening with Jade, and for the most part, in our eyes, ours meaning that in black men eyes, it seems like she is that they're doing the right thing. I just wonder from a black female, and we are trying at this moment to get one on our podcast for our next discussion. Would they look at Jade and see that as a positive influence? Do they see the quote that bitch somebody who they want to represent them? They may look at it totally different. I don't know.
It's either her or Brandy Rhodes.
Ooh, Jesus Christ.
You already know the choice with that one.
Jesus Christ. Oh.
You know,
Yeah.
You
Well,
can get
I mean-
Brandy from the block, and it still ain't good.
No. Oh man, Brandy's a trip.
She got.
Yeah, no, Brandy's a trip because, you know, when she got released, she was all like, oh, they wouldn't let me wrestle. Don't they understand I'm the daughter-in-law of Dusty Rhodes and da-da-da-da-da. Let me see. You'll see. I'll show you. And we saw, and it was not good, you know. It was the Ring of Honor run, then it's bad. But, you know, it's crazy because I would think that right now, more so than any time in history, right? There are more black and brown representations of female wrestlers than ever before. And over,
Yes.
right?
Yep.
You got, I mean, just to name a few, we got Tasha Steelz, Naomi, what's her face? The Ember Moon.
Hogan.
Kiera Hogan.
Kiera Hogan.
There, who else?
Willow
There's
Nightingale.
Willow Nightingale. Man, there's so many, right? There's so many, right? And even if you go to Brown side, Thunder Rosa, Mercedes Martinez, like there's so many. So I right now, if it's a bad booking decision, I almost feel like this is the black female version of the bra and panties match. And here's why I say that, right?
Oh, wow.
No. Here's why I say that. You
Okay.
had to get that to where, and the Butterfly Divas Championship to where we are now, and giving Divas a chance. So as much as notable as these current crop of black and brown female wrestlers are, it's only a sliver of where they can go, right? But this is even. I mean, it's just like when the ladies ended up headlining WrestleMania, right? Or they had an all female women's pay per view, or women wrestling in Saudi, right? Those are just little kind of glimpses of the door being open. It might have cracked it, and you could see inside, but it's not there yet. We're not at the final form, right? But I will say that this is where I will commend every wrestling promotion, indie, or like the big three, if you count the big three as GCW, Impact, AEW, WWE. Those three promotions have had more of a representation for black and brown females than any time in history before. So that one, I mean, of course, we want to see more of it. Maybe there becomes a all-female wrestling show where you could feature a black and brown. And that's the other thing where you almost have to Trojan horse it. We want the culture, right, to be on, but it can't just be all about us, because if you make it all about us, then it almost gets lost into the ether. Riki Dozan in Japan, who's a Korean, a North Korean at that, right? He was bringing in American wrestlers to kind of put himself over. So there has to be, like, on that front, there has to be an inclusion of that. And then you have a Jade Cargill, you have, a Naomi, a Sasha Banks, up and be the top star, a Roman Reigns-esque figure for whatever that promotion, that show is, right? That you almost need to have inclusion, because, frankly, unfortunately, there aren't too many, female, black young women that are like, I want to wrestle. But for those there are, I think they're getting represented pretty well. It could always be better.
It's interesting you were talking about, because again, with our last panel that we talked about. I posed the question. Me and Impact talk about it quite often. Mark Henry, a long time ago, I remember the interview. They were asking him about, why do we not have too many black people watching wrestling or getting into wrestling? And he didn't take it the way I would have thought. And he said it's not so much because they're black. It has to do with exposure to the product. We're only starting to slowly see exposure to the product in black neighborhoods. So I say that same sentiment with regards to women, as we just spoke about, the exposure. Because the one thing that I'm starting to see, and I know many of y'all have gone to live events, whether AEW, WWE, or Impact, I'm starting to see more female in the audience. And we're not just talking about the ones that, in the past, maybe during the Attitude Era, just looking pretty there with their boyfriend, hold the beer or whatever. They're actually full-on wrestling fans, and they know their shit. And I'm starting to see more black females who are wrestling fans, hardcore wrestling fans. And all it takes is for them to get that inspiration and that drive to go to the next level. Do you see in the next 10 years, and I guess that's my question, the next 10 years, what do you see for women's wrestling, but in particular, black women's presence in women's wrestling?
I think it'll be really, really more predominant. Is that the word I'm looking for?
Predominant, yeah.
Sounds like the word I'm looking for. And I honestly can't wait to see that. Because when that happens, what comes with it will also be intergender matches. And
like those are spoken of a lot on Twitter more than they're seen anywhere at any promotion.
Right.
Like fans will be like, in fact, for example, I got an inbox yesterday from a fans asking if I would ever do let's say a fatal 4-way intergender cage match. I was like, yeah, of course. Like, why wouldn't I do that? Like what? it like put me back that somebody even asked that. I'm like, so and to me, I'm like, so that person's around people who say that it shouldn't be males with males, females with females, and this, that, and the third. I was like, why not open that? I guess it's called a forbidden door as well, because obviously it's wanted and people want to see that stuff happen.
I like that. It's a screen door. Went right through that.
I'm just saying that is a forbidden screen door. Hey, I agree with you 1000%, brother. I mean, like, I feel like I should be able to wrestle whoever I wrestle. I've had matches where I gave a power driver to a female, or I've been in intergender matches and they're fun as shit. You'd be amazed at how some of these women work, man. Some of these women are better workers than some guys.
Yeah, 1000%.
I ain't gonna throw shade on nobody, pardon the pun. But realistically, I know some women workers that are way better than some guys, and they shut these guys down. Some of these guys should be ashamed that they're not half the man these women are.
Yeah.
like legit. So, intergender wrestling, it has a place, and on mainstream TV, it kind of like if you watch Adam Cole and Britt Baker versus Chris Statlander and Orange Cassidy,
That was a great
got
match.
involved with the men. That was a great match. That was a great match. But then we go to a pay-per-view with Miz and Maurice versus Edge and Beth Phoenix, and that was a shit show. That match was booked around Maurice running around the ring, her tits falling out.
Yeah.
Like that's what that show was built around. And I look at it as like, okay, so it was really degrading to women. And then you want to talk about more degradation to women. You put this women's Royal Rumble together and you bring the Bellas back. You bring, the living
Summer Rae.
legend, Summer Rae, and you bring all of these people that weren't wrestlers. And then the wrestlers that were in the match, you made them look like shit when Molly Holly got beat up. Honestly, that was the best part of the Rumble, Women's Rumble for me because, Nikki turned to a super heel right there, a super villain, so to speak. So that was awesome. But in the grand scheme of things, women's wrestling is going to either survive or die in the next 2 years. I'm not going to give it 5. The next 2 years, on the basis of if promoters can finally see their worth.
Yeah.
I mean, look at Impact Wrestling. They have a fucking amazing women's division. As a matter of
and
fact,
a history behind it,
that's
behind it.
The woman that shall be named nameless because I don't say her name on podcasts. She was the Impact Wrestling World Champion, not Women's World Champion, but the legit World Champion. Won the title from a man. That was a intergender match on a big scale, right there. On a major platform. Jordan Grace. Grace is about to enter into a feud with Matt Cardona over the Digital Media Championship. Dude, look at GCW. GCW has a bunch of intergender matches. So in the grand scheme of things, these indie promoters and Impact Wrestling are starting to see what Shine and Shimmer and all of these, and Thunder Rosa's Mission Pro Wrestling down in Texas, what they're seeing. Women can run the industry as well. And the WWE doesn't want to believe it. They did that one Evolution pay-per-view, which was like a big house show. But that was a step in the right direction. So if you want to continue doing that, let's go ahead and have intergender matches. Because technically, you have those matches already. You just need to have them on a bigger scale. So I give it 2 years before a promoter like MLW or GCW, they say, hey, maybe we need to be the revolutionaries and start doing intergender matches on a big scale.
Yeah. I just the Women's Evolution pay-per-view kind of sticks a thorn in my side just because of why they did it. It was just because the women, caused a fuss about not going to Saudi Arabia, so they got their own pay-per-view, and we never heard anything of it. We never heard of a Mae Young Classic after,
Exactly.
So if a revolution's gonna happen, it's usually often never televised. So it's not gonna. If you're looking to the WWE,
I see
no,
what you did there.
right, exactly. So what is going to happen, right? Just like they've done before, right? ECW got wind and what have you, and if not for ECW, we wouldn't have the Attitude Era. So something has to break out for women on an indie, maybe even bigger than indie situation. Then they'll basically react in knee-jerk reaction, and that's assuming that Nick Khan doesn't just, basically get the company down to nothing and then end up selling it to The Rock for pennies on the dollar, a la WCW. But that's my tinfoil hat firmly placed. But with that all being said, I think there's a place. I think we've just, again, got the door just a little bit open. And that's not just female wrestlers. That's not just black female wrestlers. That's not just black wrestlers. That's not just, or any gay, lesbian, transgender wrestlers, non-binary wrestlers, right? So it's all going to get better. It's just, this is the weird, crazy kind of testing grounds to see if that works.
So let me guys ask you this, and we'll be slowly wrapping it up pretty soon. But let me just ask you this: for someone who's watching this, who's maybe not of a person of color, and they going, "I hear what these guys saying, but I'm confused." Bobby Lashley now is the Raw champion. Moose is the Impact champion. Jay Cargo, the TBS Women's Champion. You got Alex Kane over there at MLW.
That's my boy. Shout out to Alex Kane.
Yeah, you got
man.
yeah, you got him over there. You got Carmella Hayes, over at the NXT. Tasha Steele's about to go up for the knockout. She probably won't win it, but but the bottom line is, what do you say when someone is going like, man, I don't see where the issue, because even right now it looks like we are seeing prominent black wrestlers being featured and promoted. What do you say to them?
Honestly, what they're seeing now is all reaction.
Yep.
It's not because they thought, hey, this is a great idea, let's do this. It's because they got their punt card pulled, and they're like, oh shit, we gotta cover our ass now. We'll do it with this, and then we'll say, we've been like this since forever, hoping that people will buy into it. And sadly, a lot of people will buy into it.
Oh, because people got short.
But then there's also a group of people who are like, I'm not buying that. I've been paying attention from the get-go. Like, this happened in the world, so y'all did this to cover your backsides. But yeah, we're good. Invest your money.
Right.
It is a knee-jerk reaction, and that's true. If you think about, in the grand scheme of things, a lot of the booking that's happening in the WWE over the last, let's say, 24 months have been like, oh man, we fired so many people. How can we make our show work? Oh, I see AEW is doing this. MLW is doing this.
Let's bring back Goldberg 8 times.
Yeah. How do we fix a pay-per-view? We'll just bring in Oldberg. Have him come in and jobs and put somebody, and not put anybody over. Have shitty matches. Unsafe, hurting people. Let's do that, everybody, because that's what the fans want to see. Or, hey, we got all of these people in catering, all of these young guys like Mustafa Ali and Lindsay Dorado, and all these cool young guys that we're either gonna fire or we're having sit in catering. Literally, I said this on the podcast last night. They should create a premium live event and name it catering.
Hell yeah.
And just get everybody in catering one fucking match. You know what I mean? It'd be on.
Fight.
That's legitimately probably what it would be, just a food fight.
That'd probably be what they would reduce to.
You probably see Veer Mahan just sitting there like, I'm still coming.
Yeah, so for me, I'm almost looking at it future text, right? Well, we'll judge their, if we're talking about the WWE specifically, we're going to judge what they've done in terms of promoting black and brown wrestlers. If Bobby Lashley has a bronze statue, much like Bruno Sammartino, Andre the Giant, Ric Flair, and Hulk Hogan, oh yeah, Hulk Hogan, in the lobby of Titan Towers, is Bobby Lashley going to be there? Is Dusty Rhodes, who, if you're talking about, if Aquafina is getting canceled for appropriating black culture, which is here nor there, but Dusty Rhodes,
She's getting
Superstar Billy
canceled for that?
Graham,
Are you kidding? I love her.
it's definitely a thing, right? But with that all being said, what about Dusty Rhodes and Billy Graham, who talk about shucking and jiving, did that for? I mean, it's no different than Pat Boone singing, Little Richard records, right? So, are we going to take a Kofi Kingston, a Big E, a Bobby Lashley, a Shelton Benjamin? Are they going to be in the same enshrinement in terms of the WWE as a Bruno Sammartino, as a Triple H, as a Ric Flair, as even one of my all-time favorite, Bret Hart? Are they going to be in that conversation of some of the greatest of all times?
No.
Or are they going to be reduced somehow, some way, with the asterisk next to their name? Oh, well, Bobby Lashley also left us for TNA or left us for MMA. Well, it wasn't bad when Brock did it, right? Right?
Like
So-
5 to 6 times.
5 or 6 times. So that's to me what I think. When a Bobby Lashley or Shelton Benjamin is on WWTK as WWE 2K with in the 90 percentile in terms of their average, that's how you could track it. That's if there's more Lashley or what have you things, figures, action figures in to be purchased by kids to see a representation. Like, that is where it'll lie. But again, like I said before, even if that happens, it's not to say that we're going to be taken any more seriously. Because we're always only as serious as they let us be. That's why we have the R-Truth. That's why Saba Simba happened. It wasn't like they held a gun to Tony Atlas' head. He went out and did it. And when he wasn't that, he was with Abraham Washington. So again,
I totally forgot about that.
yeah. So support. You support black wrestling, but support all wrestling, because chances are, you got whoever you are, you're probably better represented now than you ever have before. But is it to the extent that you feel fully represented, fully invested? And if you have a question about that, you need to support more. Support more podcasts like the Vegas Bad Boys. Damn it.
Right.
There you go.
Appreciate that.
Plug.
We appreciate it, man. Well, guys, we definitely appreciate you coming through. In a minute, I'm happy to give your last thoughts and shout out whatever promotions you got going on. But the whole purpose of this was to just to create some insight about this. I know other podcasts and other people are trying to do the same thing, and I think it's great. I think everyone should listen to it all, take it in. You can never not have too much information so that you can't say, well, I didn't know. And when you hear everybody saying the same thing and we don't know, have no connections with all these other people, but we're all saying the same thing, there's something there, And so if you're trying to figure out, well, how do I help? I think Adam definitely brought it down. Definitely help, indie wrestling. Definitely go to the shows. Definitely support definitely black wrestlers. You see that they got shirts. Buy their shirts. Even if you ain't necessarily a fan, you're still helping them build their career and helping ultimately, we hoping to get to see them on the bigger platform at some point as well. So just that support alone is what you can do, and even supporting our podcast, like he says too. We don't charge anything. We just ask you to listen, download, and tell people about others, and that's all. And we'll keep doing what we do. So, fellas, I'm gonna start with you, Da Shade. What final word you have to say, and what promotion of anything you want to let the folks know? Uh-oh. I don't hear you, Shade.
He might be on mute.
Shades on that.
I still had it muted. My bad.
Okay. It's
So he's on that mute mode.
yeah.
What I was gonna say was like, this message is for anybody and everybody who's crazy enough to do this sport, male or female, it doesn't matter. If this is what you want, go out there and freaking do it. Don't listen to people telling you to do it a certain way, this way, that way. Do it your way, because no one knows you like you do. No one knows what you're capable of, no one knows what you know more than you. Like, you are your own entity. They don't pay you paychecks. They don't write your taxes to the IRS. Live your life, have fun while doing it. Because if you're not having fun, don't do
We're
it.
doing it.
Yeah. Awesome. And do you have anything you're doing you want to throw out there, or that's it?
Whew, I got a whole bunch. Okay, here we go. So February 25, 26, 27, you can catch me with Versus Pro Studios and in collaboration with Party Hard and in collaboration with Pride Style Pro at the Las Vegas Convention Center for Level Up. It's a big video game anime convention. Be there all 3 days. You can also catch me June 5th now up in Pacheco Square Gardens in the Bay Area. It's myself versus Jay Vidal versus Keita Murray in a cage match for the Prince of Pride title. Then June 17th, I make my debut out in New Jersey for Vibe Pro Wrestling. You catch me there as well. If you're looking for Shade merch, I got 3 different websites. There's Store Frontier /Da Shade, Pro Wrestling Tees /Da Shade, and Brainbuster Tees. Guess what? /Da Shade.
Man, that's simple and easy right there.
That's right. That's awesome. If y'all out there in Jersey, make sure you put that on the calendar and go see my man. All right. Adam Woods, man, what do you want to say? What final word you have? And then also let us know what you got out there to promote.
Nah, just be yourself. It's going to take courage to be yourself. So just be yourself. And if you are literally getting the same thing over and over again, sometimes it is you. Sometimes you might need to change something. To be great, you need to change something up if you hear something enough times. But with all that being said, you got to be yourself. You can't be represented if you don't portray the truest sense of yourself. So I don't think any of us here would think maybe 5, 10, 15 in BJ's instance 30 years ago that we would be able to do what we're doing, and we've all done it. So if anything I think you could take from us is be yourself. And speaking of myself, you can find me at least the podcast on Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, and Twitter. That's the According to Woods podcast. Also, I'm on Twitter and Instagram at According to Woods, and I'm usually sharing people getting dumped on their head because I've got a unnatural reaction to stuff like that. So there you go.
Awesome, man. Thank you much for that. PJ Darden, what do you want to say to the folks out there and what you got going on?
Well, you can catch me every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday on the Roundtable Pro Wrestling Podcast. We do AEW Dynamite, we do AEW Rampage, we do SmackDown, we do Raw. Sometimes I get wrapped up on the Tuesday night show for NXT. It just depends on what I'm doing. You can catch me every Sunday live at the Colony in Portland, Oregon, 7525 Richmond Avenue. This Sunday, we got a huge event. I'm defending the OIWA North American Heavyweight Championship against one thoroughbred Caleb Rex in the Open Challenge. TJ Perkins is going to be on the show, challenging Just Exciting for the BCW Worldwide Championship. And guess what? You can watch it on pay-per-view. All you got to do is hit your boys up at BCW Booker. That is BCWBOOKER at gmail.com. Man, you can catch me on planes, on trains, and automobiles around this country defending the OIWA North American Championship. So I'll let you boys, ladies and gentlemen. Oh, and support your boy. You can go to ProWrestlingTees.com. You can search the franchise player Bad Blood or Rated 2, the letter G.
There you go. Simon Street, man, you want to say anything, man? I don't want to leave you out. If you want to throw anything in there.
Nah, pretty much, man. Like the conversation that we had, I want to thank all of our panel members for coming on.
Yeah.
Your insight was very much valuable. And anybody that's listening right here, in order to make a dream happen, you have to give it legs and life. Be that breath that you breathe into your dream and give it form.
That's realness right there, ladies and gentlemen.
That's what's up. All right, y'all. Thanks for hanging out. We will we'll try to have another one of these. And
Subscribe to Vegas Bad Boys Podcast. Woo!
Exactly. All right, y'all. We'll see you next time. Peace.